The stellar drifter sliced through the void, a lone speck in the endless black between Mars and Europa's ice mines. Captain Elena Voss, a grizzled veteran of 54, was elbow-deep in the ship's guts, coaxing life into a stubborn grav plate, when a piercing alarm shattered the silence. She froze, spanner in hand, as the console screamed about an intruder, not at the airlock, not on the scanners, but inside cargo hold 4. Something had materialized out of nowhere, a jagged, obsidian structure pulsing with eerie glyphs that seemed to whisper secrets the universe wasn't ready to share. 18 years of hauling cargo had taught Elena to expect trouble, but nothing prepared her for this. Heart pounding, pulse pistol drawn, she descended into the hold, driven by a dangerous spark of curiosity that might just change her life, or end it. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport of the stellar drifter, a battered cargo freighter that had been Captain Elena Voss's home for nearly 2 decades. At 54, with streaks of silver threading her dark hair and hands scarred from years of wrestling with stubborn machinery, Elena thrived on the quiet of deep space. No corporate overseers breathing down her neck, no pirate raids, just the hum of her ship's engines and the vast, silent black between Mars and the ice mines of Europa. Since her messy divorce 7 years prior, the solitude of these runs had become her sanctuary. The drifter wasn't flashy, a repurposed hauler from the colony wars, all dented hulls and patched conduits, but it was hers, and it got the job done. Elena was elbow-deep in recalibrating the ship's grav plating in the lower hold when the proximity alarm blared, a shrill wail that made her drop her spanner. "What now?" she muttered, wiping sweat from her brow as she hauled herself to the bridge. The main console was flashing red, warning of an unidentified object in cargo hold 4. Not docked, not scanned, not logged, it had just appeared. Elena's stomach nodded. In 18 years of hauling ore and supplies, she'd never seen anything materialize out of nowhere. She pulled up the internal feeds, her sharp green eyes narrowing at the grainy image. There, in the middle of the hold, sat a structure that didn't belong, a jagged, obsidian-like construct, its surfaces rippling like liquid under the hold's harsh lights. It was roughly the size of a small rover, maybe 12 feet tall, with faint glyphs pulsing along its sides, glowing like embers in a dying fire. "Great," Elena growled, grabbing her pulse pistol from the bridge locker. "Just what I needed, a cosmic yard sail in my hold." Years of navigating the asteroid belts had taught her to expect trouble, and this screamed it. The drifter's corridors echoed with the clank of her boots as she descended to the hold. The ship's steady hum was a comfort, a reminder that she was still in control, or so she hoped. The hold's blast doors hissed open, revealing the structure in all its eerie glory. Up close, it was even stranger, its surface seeming to drink in the light, the glyphs throbbing with a rhythm that felt alive. Elena kept her pistol low but ready, her heart pounding despite her best efforts to stay calm. "Who's there?" she called, her voice sharp in the cavernous hold. "This is Captain Voss of the Stellar Drifter. You're trespassing, and I'm not in the mood for surprises." A panel on the structure slid open, revealing a doorway that shimmered like a heat mirage. Beyond it stretched a corridor that defied logic, extending far beyond the structure's apparent size. Elena's instincts screamed to back off, but curiosity, a trait that had gotten her into trouble more times than she cared to admit, pulled her forward. Pistol raised, she stepped through. The corridor was lined with a material that looked like polished obsidian but felt warm under her boots. Lights pulsed from no discernible source, casting no shadows. Her footsteps were silent, which sent a shiver down her spine. She'd explored abandoned alien outposts during her service in the war, but this was something else, something that felt like it shouldn't exist. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, easily the size of a colony dome, its ceiling a swirling tapestry of unfamiliar constellations. In the center stood what looked like a house, a quaint, almost absurdly normal structure with a sloped roof and a fence that shimmered like spun glass. It was as if someone had ripped a homestead from a Martian suburb and dropped it into this impossible place. "Okay," Elena muttered, "either the air filters are pumping hallucinogens, or I'm about to have a very weird day." She approached the house cautiously, noting a mailbox that floated a foot off the ground, spinning lazily. Before she could process it, the front door swung open, and out stepped a figure that made her grip her pistol tighter. It was humanoid, about 7 feet tall, draped in a robe that shimmered like a nebula. Its face was unsettlingly fluid, eyes and features shifting slightly with each glance, like a sketch being redrawn. Captain Elena Voss, the being said, its voice a melodic hum that seemed to come from everywhere. Welcome. I've been expecting someone like you, a curious, corporeal soul with a knack for survival. You'll do splendidly. Elena kept her pistol steady. Who are you, and why are you squatting in my cargo hold? My apologies. I am, well, my true name would take several of your lifetimes to pronounce. Call me Lasara. I've taken a form your mind can process. As for my presence, I require assistance with a few tasks suited to someone of your tangible nature. Assistance? Elena said, her tone dry as Martian dust. You pop into my ship uninvited because you need a hand? Exactly. Lasara's face shimmered into a smile. I serve the Cosmic Custodian, a magnificent entity of 13 dimensions, fond of paradoxes and pastries. I've been assigned certain duties, but this form, she gestured at herself, is dreadfully limited. I need someone who exists firmly in your three-dimensional reality. Elena lowered her pistol slightly, sensing no immediate threat but keeping her guard up. So, what, you need me to run errands for you? Lasara clapped her hands, the sound like a chime echoing through a void. Errands. What a charming term. Yes, precisely. In return, I'll grant you an artifact of unparalleled value, something that could reshape your understanding of existence. Elena's eyes narrowed. She'd heard plenty of sales pitches in her time, and this sounded like a scam wrapped in cosmic glitter. But she was 6 days from Europa, with no urgent deadlines, and her curiosity was itching. What kind of artifact? Oh, it defies description. Empires have crumbled for less. Stars have wept in its presence. It's the sort of thing that makes reality itself take notice. Elena crossed her arms. Fine. What's the first task? Lasara's face glowed with delight. Marvelous. First, I need you to take my companion, Flicker, for a stroll. Flicker? Elena asked, already regretting her decision. You've got a pet. Not a pet, Percy. Flicker is a temporal anomaly with a penchant for exploration. She needs a bit of exercise. Lasara gestured to a structure beside the house that looked like a kennel, if kennels were woven from threads of pure energy and pulsed in and out of existence. Out bounded Flicker, and Elena's jaw tightened. The creature was vaguely canine, with 6 legs that didn't always touch the ground and a body that shimmered like a mirage. Its eyes, or what passed for eyes, swirled with colors that didn't belong on any spectrum she knew. Hey, girl, Elena said cautiously, and Flicker responded by leaping toward her, leaving trails of distorted space in its wake. It stopped just short of her, vibrating with an energy that made her teeth ache. She likes you. Lasara said, handing Elena a leash that looked like woven plasma. This should keep her tethered. Mostly. Elena clipped the leash to a collar that seemed to be made of frozen light. The moment she did, Flicker surged forward, pulling her through the house's front door and into a surreal landscape. It was a neighborhood, but not one that followed any rules of physics. Houses twisted in impossible geometries, one seemed to be eating itself, another pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat, and a third was made of what looked like liquid music. Flicker dragged her down a street that curved into dimensions she couldn't name. Other beings watched them pass, a cloud of sentient numbers, a creature that looked like a walking memory, and something that might have been a lamppost if lampposts could sigh. Morning. Elena called to a shrub that was pruning itself with tendrils of light. It nodded back with a branch that wasn't there a second ago. Flicker stopped at what looked like a tree, if trees were made of compressed gravity and whispered equations. Elena braced for the usual dog behavior, but instead, Flicker opened a maw that appeared mid-torso and consumed the tree in one gulp, letting out a burp that sounded like a collapsing star. "Well, that's new," Elena said, gripping the leash tighter. The walk continued, with Flicker chasing shadows that moved backward in time and sniffing at concepts that didn't exist. At one point, it howled at a cloud that was simultaneously raining and not raining, the sound warping the air around them. After what felt like hours, or possibly minutes, given the way time seemed to hiccup here, they returned to Lysara's house. Flicker curled up in her kennel, half in and half out of reality. "Splendid," Lysara said, taking the leash. "Flicker hasn't been this lively in centuries, or perhaps tomorrow. Time's a bit wobbly here. Now, for the second task, my garden needs tending." Elena sighed. "Let me guess, your garden's not exactly roses and tomatoes." Lysara handed her a watering can that felt like it was made of liquid starfire. "Just give the plants a good soak. They're around back." The garden was a riot of impossibility, growing not in soil but in a shimmering field of potential. There were flowers that sang in minor keys, vines that rewrote their own shapes, and a shrub that seemed to be debating itself in 3 voices. Elena tilted the watering can, and outpoured a substance that looked like molten hope. The moment it touched a plant, a bulbous thing that resembled a cross between a cabbage and a paradox, it sprouted wings and took off, buzzing like a philosophical argument. "Oh, come on," Elena groaned as more plants began to move. A fern unfolded into a fractal and scuttled away. A fruit that was simultaneously an apple and a question mark rolled off, giggling. She spent what felt like an eternity, or maybe 12 seconds, chasing down the rogue flora. A particularly stubborn vine that insisted it was the concept of justice kept trying to tie her boots together. By the time she'd wrangled them all back into place, she was sweaty, exasperated, and arguing with a daisy that claimed she wasn't real. "Well done," Lysara said when Elena returned, panting. "The garden's never been so animated. Usually, they just sit there contemplating eternity. Now, the third task, take out the refuse." Lysara pointed to a pile of bags that looked deceptively normal. Elena grabbed one, and it thrummed under her hands, as if it contained something alive. She peeked inside and nearly dropped it. The bag was stuffed with treasures, crystals that sang forgotten songs, metals that pulsed with energy, and vials of what looked like bottled starlight. "You're throwing this out?" Elena asked, incredulous. "To me, it's clutter," Lysara said with a wave. "In 13 dimensions, material wealth is like, what's your human phrase? Pennies in a fountain." Elena hauled the bags to the backyard, where she found a dumpster that was anything but ordinary. It was a writhing mass of metal and energy, its lid opening in 5 directions at once. "Feed me," it bellowed, its voice like grinding gears. "You eat garbage?" Elena asked. "Garbage? This is sustenance. The cast-offs of infinity." She tossed in the first bag, and the dumpster split into 2, then 4, then a dozen, each one chattering excitedly about the meal. "Such exquisite detritus," one crowed. "The stardust has a fine vintage, 15 billion years." Elena dumped the rest of the bags, watching as the dumpster collective multiplied into a small army, all burping contentedly. Back inside, Lysara was lounging in a chair that seemed to be made of pure comfort. "Marvelous. The refuse collective hasn't been this satisfied in eons. Now, the 4th task, my roof needs polishing." "Your roof," Elena said, deadpan. "Let me guess, it's made of something ridiculous, like solidified dreams." "Clothes. It's woven from temporal filaments. It tarnishes when exposed to linear causality. The ladder's outside." Elena found the ladder leaning against the house, which now seemed to shift slightly with every glance. She climbed to the roof, which was larger than the house itself and shimmered like a frozen moment. Lysara had left a bucket of what looked like liquid memory and a rag that felt like woven chance. As Elena scrubbed, the roof began to glow, revealing glimpses of her past, her first flight, her daughter's laugh, the day she signed her divorce papers, and futures that might be. She was so caught up in the images that she didn't notice the roof stirring until it bucked beneath her. The filaments liquefied, forming a hand that flicked her off like a bug. She landed in a patch of grass that felt like woven probability, cursing as she stood. "Sorry," Lysara called from below. "The roof gets cranky when it's clean. It's sentient, you see, and doesn't like being stepped on." The roof, now a shimmering serpent, slithered off to admire itself in a nearby void. Elena dusted herself off, glaring. "What's the last task?" Lysara's expression turned sheepish. "This one's tricky. I've been experimenting with quantum fauna, specifically, probability beetles. I may have overfed them, and they've declared their own ecosystem." "Declared their own what?" Elena asked. Lysara handed her a vial of shimmering mist. "This is probability neutralizer. They're through that door." She pointed to a panel that hadn't existed moments ago. Elena stepped through into a pocket dimension the size of a small town, overrun with beetles the size of cats. They flickered between states, shiny and dull, flying and crawling, existing and not. In the center sat a massive beetle, its carapace a kaleidoscope of realities, chittering in a voice that echoed across dimensions. "Captain Elena Voss," she replied, gripping the vial. "Lysara sent me to check on you." "Lysara? That meddler. Her probability feed awakened us. We are boundless, eternal, infinite. You're also eating nearby dimensions," Elena said. "That's a problem." The beetle hissed, its minions scuttling closer. Elena uncorked the vial, releasing a mist that spread like wildfire. The beetles chittered in panic, collapsing into single states, ordinary, iridescent insects no bigger than her thumb. The massive beetle shrank to a normal size, looking bewildered as it nibbled on a leaf. "Back to normal," Elena muttered, herding the beetles through the door. Lysara was ecstatic. "You've done it. All tasks complete." She led Elena to a vault-like door in the house. "Your reward, the most valuable artifact in existence." Inside was a cavernous space filled with wonders, orbs that sang, blades that cut through time, gems that whispered secrets. But Lysara stopped at a simple pedestal holding a small, metallic orb no bigger than an apple. "This," Lysara said, "is yours." Elena picked it up, expecting something grand. It was light, warm, and unremarkable. "This is it. Observe," Lysara said. Elena squeezed the orb, and a sip of water appeared in her mouth, clean, refreshing, infinite. "It's an endless font," Lysara explained. "Infinite water, always pure, always what you need. In a universe of scarcity, this is priceless." Elena pocketed the orb, a smile tugging at her lips. "Thanks, Lysara." "No, thank you. The custodian will be pleased. And who knows? Our paths may cross again." Back on the drifter, the structure vanished, leaving the hold empty. The ship's chronometer showed no time had passed, but Elena felt the weight of the orb and the grass stains of probability on her knees. She settled into her chair, took a sip from the orb, it tasted like a mountain spring, and smiled. 6 days to Europa, but her sensors soon pinged with an anomaly, a ship, unregistered, trailing her. "Captain Voss," came a voice over the comm, "we are the keepers of the improbable. We've detected an impossible object aboard your vessel. May we discuss an exchange?" Elena glanced at the orb. Her routine run had just gotten interesting. "I'm listening," she said, "but make it quick. I've had a hell of a day." The keepers docked, their forms defying description, one a living melody, another a shifting equation, the third a blur of future moments. They offered wonders, tech, knowledge, adventure, but Elena declined, choosing the orb's simplicity over cosmic chaos. They left her a card that shimmered in too many dimensions, promising to return when she was ready. The journey to Europa was quiet, but Elena felt richer than ever. The orb's water sustained her, a reminder that the simplest things could hold infinite value. As she docked, her first officer, Jamal Carter, noted an odd energy signature. "Just a glitch," Elena said, sipping from the orb. That night, she sat with the orb and the card, pondering the impossible. She wasn't ready for constant adventure, not yet. But with an endless font and a universe full of mysteries, Elena knew she'd be saying yes to the unknown a lot more often.